we hear from Sir Philip in a moment, afterwards there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers, so please don't feel shy, I'm sure none of you feel shy, at coming forward with anything that you want to ask. Before I introduce Sir Philip, I think we need to pay tribute to Stephen Burrows and Gillian, because it's Stephen and Gillian who have pulled this event together. Stephen holds a brief on behalf of Her Majesty's Lieutenancy in Merseyside to link with HMS Prince of Wales, and he's got increasingly enthusiastic about the Royal Navy, I've noticed, over the last year or so, and it's through his work that we have this event this morning, but particularly for you, and all of you from the business community know Stephen even better than the rest of us, because he rings you up all the time. And I think you get the phone call now. So thank you to Stephen. Admiral Sir Philip Jones is a local boy. He was born on Wirral, just across the water, where he will be going later today as well for events. And he joined the Royal Navy in 1978 and has done a lot of, he's got a vast array of work in the Navy, from being at sea and from desk jobs, and now he finds himself as the first Sea Lord and Chief of Naval Staff. So he is the professional head of the Navy, he's chairman of the Navy Board and responsible to the Secretary of State for fighting effectiveness, efficiency, and most difficult is probably morale within the naval service. And as a member of the Defence Council, supports the Secretary of State in the management and direction of the armed forces through all that they do. As a member of the Chief of Staff Committee and Armed Forces Committee, he advises on maritime aspects of all operations and the underlying strategy and policy. And at the end of the long biography I've got, it says as well that he's a top budget holder, and I think that's the most important thing. He's the man with the money, and he advises the Permanent Under-Secretary on resource allocation. There is much that can be said about the role of the Royal Navy today, and its connection as well with us here in Liverpool. And Sir Philip, thank you for coming. We'll listen to what you say.
But it's wonderful to be back here in Liverpool. You've now heard my roots, I'll touch on those a little bit shortly. And back in a church I recognise is one of the most significant churches in the country that embodies the maritime heritage. And I had the privilege of being here about 6-7 years ago, I think, as a Vice Admiral, when HMS Liverpool did her final Freedom of the City parade, preparing to decommission. There's a wonderful service here that personified the link between that ship and the city of Liverpool. And it's wonderful that we're taking that forward, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I want to talk a little bit about the Royal Navy today, about what we're doing, about our plans for the future. But of course, it's a place of great personal significance for me, and I'm so pleased to see that so much of that future is embodied here in what's happening at the Camelot shipyard over the water, where my father spent much of his working life. And it's great to see that yard thriving again. It's only great to see you here today representing Camelot. Once more seeing its docks being filled with our ships being maintained in refit. We have a substantial number of our Royal Fleet's auxiliary ships go through Camelot for their refit, including our new tanker Tidespring, who I think has arrived safely here now and is about to start her first refit. And of course soon to be joined by the unmistakable silhouettes of our world-class Type 45 destroyers, who are coming to Camelot to go one by one through a major upgrade work on their propulsion systems over the next few years. First one due about the end of the year, Tony, I think. And I'm certain that it's sites like that, and indeed the warships that were being built at Camelot, that were one of the influences on my decision to join the Royal Navy 41 years ago. But of course, back in 1978, yes, it was that long ago, but I have to pinch myself, it's the 70s that I joined the Navy. It was a very different prospect then, it was a very different Navy that I had joined. It was certainly a large Navy, but following a successive round of cuts, it was also starting to be a smaller fleet, and it was coming back from a global presence. We had come out of the Far East, we closed our Far East Fleet base at Singapore, we closed our bases in the Middle East, and we were increasingly centring on the North Atlantic, concentrating on an anti-submarine warfare battle against the Soviet Navy. And the year I joined the Navy, the last of our then fleet carriers, the old Ark Royal, made famous by the 1976 TV series Sailor, who can remember that. If you didn't see it live at the time, you should see it if you can find it on DVD. It's an extraordinary message of what life in the Navy was like then, and it's very different now. But that ship was about to be decommissioned, and the successor class of ships that had been originally conceived to replace them had been cancelled by the government a decade previously. And for those of you who, like me, can remember back that far, of course, darker days were still to come, because just after that, the Defence Secretary, John Knott, conducted a defence review in 1981 that had a savage attack on the size of the Navy's surface fleet. So if you told the newly joined Richard and Jones in 1978 that one day he would be leading a Navy that was reasserting its global presence in every part of the world, that had credible plans once again to grow in size, and that was about to bring into service the second of two 65,000-ton aircraft carriers, the biggest ships the Navy's ever had, capable of projecting fifth-generation aircraft all around the world, I'm not sure that he would have believed you, and yet here we are. And the carriers are probably a good point for me to start today, because of the significance of the affiliation of the second aircraft carrier, HMS Prince of Wales, to Liverpool. And you don't need me to tell you the scale of Liverpool's rich maritime heritage or the importance of the sea to just about everything that happens in this city, but suffice to say that I think it's entirely appropriate, and I'd like to say I did have some hand in shaping this, that a maritime-centric city like Liverpool should have an affiliation to one of those two aircraft carriers. And for decades to come, those ships will sit not just at the forefront of the Royal Navy's capability, but at the heart of the nation's expeditionary forces. We're still in the process of trying to make the government fall in love with the carrier in the way I know the US government do and the French government do. They want to know where the carrier is at all stages and how it can be used, and we are en route to being in that place. And I'm really pleased to see how well that affiliation is flourishing already. I know the ship's company are investing hugely in that. It's wonderful to see some representatives of Prince of Wales Ship's Company here today, with Lieutenant Commander Tom Hetherington and their senior marine engineer leading the team. And I'm sure it's an affiliation that will flourish in the years to come. And we are actively looking at the first moment we can show her off in the Mersey once she sails this autumn to start her trials. But back to the Royal Navy's carrier story, because not since the last Harrier flew from the most recent ship to bear the name Ark Royal, so not the large fleet carrier that decommissioned in 1978, but the Invincible class carrier that decommissioned in November 2010. Not since a Harrier flew from the deck of that ship has the Royal Navy operated any fast jets from sea at all, so that's already a 9-year gap. And there were plenty of naysayers around at the time who said that we wouldn't be able to bridge that gap. We wouldn't be able to keep the government's commitments to building a new generation of carriers. We wouldn't be able to put the alliance together of industry and government and Navy that would be able to do it. And we wouldn't be able to recruit and retain enough skilled people to operate aircraft carriers, not just fly the jets, but work the deck and make a ship that size work. And so it's fair to say that there was no shortage of excitement right across the fleet, and not just on board the ship. And of course, crucially, with all our allies too, particularly our American and French allies, when those first images of an F-35B Lightning jet landing on board HMS Queen Elizabeth on the other side of the Atlantic in October last year came through. My fleet commander, Vice Admiral Ben Key, who was on board at the time, never quite sure how I counted it rather than claiming it for myself, but it felt the right thing at the time. He said for a whole raft of them, and if I mentioned that the Commander Queen Elizabeth Wings, as those of you in the Navy will know we call him, was the pilot who'd flown that last carrier off the deck of Rock Royal in 2010. They all said it was a bit misty in Flyco that day and a bit smoky, and they had to scratch their eyes a bit. It was an extraordinary moment, and it had been 2 decades in the making. And it's an event that many rich and powerful nations around the world who are throwing lots of money and a lot of political ambition at carrier capability wish they had the ability to emulate. It's an event that sees the Royal Navy firmly back in place as a carrier navy. And those first-class flying trials have already pushed out the bounds of what the ship and the aircraft can do and are making giant strides towards the first operational deployment of Queen Elizabeth in 2 years' time. So when she was across in the other side of the Atlantic last year on what we call the Westland 18 deployment, that also enabled her to show to the government what a ship like that can do for the nation. She'd also embarked some All Marines from 42 Commando and some Commando Assault Merlin helicopters from the Commando Helicopter Force, and they had proved her utility in the amphibious assault role as well. We also put her into New York for a weekend. Now this time I did claim Scottish rights, and as head of service I went out and joined her for that weekend. And she supported an event called the Atlantic Futures Forum, while at anchor, literally a couple of cables away from the Statue of Liberty, an extraordinary venue to put an aircraft carrier. And she supported the Department for International Trade in a way that only a ship that size with that degree of convening power can do. And so I'm pleased to say that after decades of debate about whether the nation should have carriers, even the loudest critics of that programme are now starting to wake up and realise what these ships can offer, not just to the Royal Navy, but to the nation. Given the significance of our achievements with Queen Elizabeth across in the United States last year, you'll be forgiven for thinking that that was the Royal Navy's sole or even main focus to achieve during 2018, but rather we saw the wide ensign fly in every one of the world's oceans last year. We made our presence felt globally and synchronously with a sort of scale and reach that have been unprecedented in recent times. And I'm very pleased to acknowledge we got the political direction to do that. We had an ambitious Prime Minister, Foreign Secretary and Defence Secretary who said this is what we want you to do with the Navy. Not only have we restored our place therefore as a carrier Navy, we've also been demonstrating that we're a global Navy too. We had a near permanent presence in the Indo-Pacific region for all of 2018. The Type 23 frigates Sutherland, Argyll and Montrose, who's still there now, and the amphibious landing ship Albion all spent time in the Indo-Pacific region last year. The submarine Trenchant operated with her American colleagues under the polar ice for the first time in 10 years. So in so many ways we're reasserting our presence back on the world stage. Our Royal Marines were as hard at work as ever from the Arctic tundra of Norway, and they're still there now, exercising in some of the toughest conditions on the planet, to the jungles of Brunei and Belize. They also had short-term training teams deployed right across Africa. And then also, again, at the same time, the Royal Navy Medical Service stood up and provided a UN field hospital in South Sudan to protect the work going on there. And all of this came over and above what we call routine activity, where we have sailors and marines, shipped aircraft, submarines deployed in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, in the North and South Atlantic, and of course in home waters. But in practice, there's little routine about those operations at the moment. There are notable increases in home waters, in the Baltic, in the North Atlantic, and in no small part because an emboldened Russian Navy has returned to those waters at scale and with sophisticated capability. We've also seen them operating extensively in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Black Sea, and we have to work hard with our NATO allies to assert a presence there to make sure that people never assume that they are just becoming Russian lakes, those parts of the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. So we stood up as a Royal Navy and commanded 2 NATO standing maritime groups in the Mediterranean for the whole of 2018, and again reflected that Royal Navy lead within NATO is much appreciated. And then alongside our mine countermeasures force permanently deployed in the Arabian Gulf, 4 mine hunters based in Bahrain with crews changing every 6 months. We also put the Type 45 destroyer Dragon into that region. And as you might have seen, on a near perpetual basis, she's in illicit drugs activity. And last night I changed my notes of 5 major drug busts in the last 3 months to 6, because she's just cracked another one. Extraordinary, powerful, intelligence-led operations that enable that ship and her Royal Marine boarding team to make significant effects on illicit activity. And in the midst of what was probably an already busy year, the activity really peaked in the autumn. And I've touched on Queen Elizabeth's deployment to the United States already, supported by the frigate Monmouth and the new tanker Tidespring, now here at Camelot Refit. But at the same time as we were doing that, we had a 6-ship amphibious task group with the lead commando group based around 40 commando embarked to conduct exercise Safe Surrey 3 in Oman. And at the same time, we had a 7-ship task group with also Royal Marines and Commando Helicopter Force aircraft embarked in a French amphibious ship, taking part in NATO exercise Trident Juncture off Norway, the biggest NATO exercise of its kind since the end of the Cold War, and a clear deterrent effect to Russian ambitions in that region. So not only were each of those deployments significant in their own right, but they also provided proof, if any were needed, of our ability as a Navy to generate, deploy and sustain a sizable force around the world, and all the while our submariners, very often unseen, very often unnoticed, maintain their sole custody of the ultimate guarantor of the nation's security, the submarine-based nuclear deterrent. And that operation, Continuous At-Sea Nuclear Deterrence, CASD as we call it, now given an operational name, quite rightly, Operation Relentless, the longest operation ever mounted by Defence, is celebrating this year 50 years of unbroken patrols, and it's still going strong, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And so, as you can hopefully see from that brief snapshot of what the Navy was doing in 2018, we continue to be in very high demand. As I was saying to Stephen on the way in, we've got D-Day 75 coming up, and the sculpture outside, which is travelling the country, having had its launch on BBC Breakfast yesterday, is embodying that. D-Day 75 is going to be another very significant event that we're being asked to support with everything we have available in the Royal Navy to show our recognition of the significance of that event, and I'm very happy to do so. But all of this is signs of a tempo that's unrelenting, and we've begun 2019 in very much the same way. And that level of activity comes in response to an unrelenting demand signal. I can't order the Navy out and around the world on my own bat. I have to have political cover to do that. And I think that tempo, that demand for operations, shows that the maritime domain is being seen as increasingly important for the security and the prosperity of this island nation. You could say, why does that need reproving? And yes, it does seem to do so. Sea blindness is an issue that we have to deal with on a near constant basis. I'm still amazed at the number of people in this country who think most of their food, supplies, commodities come in either via the Channel Tunnel or on cargo aircraft, without recognising that 90% of it by volume comes in by sea, and that the Royal Navy's role in safeguarding the country's interests both at home and further afield needs to be increasingly recognised. But of course, with that recognition comes an expectation that we'll carry on delivering to the nation, and therefore we have to be ready to do that. And our long-standing pedigree of operational success around the world, combined with a very clear-eyed sense of the challenges we face, and all of that done in a very uncertain security climate, with threats that are both intensifying and diversifying, also helps to underpin our case for investment in the future of the service. So the result is something of a renaissance for the fleet, say something that Richard and Jones 40 years ago would not have recognised as the Navy was coming down in size, and we're going through a remarkable period of fleet renewal, introducing new ships, new submarines, new aircraft, but also new systems and new technologies that will ensure we can remain ready for whatever the future may hold. So just a few of the highlights from that future equipment programme. The biggest and most obvious, of course, is HMS Prince of Wales, which I've already mentioned, due to sail from our site in September, join the fleet by the end of the year, and then give us 2 operational carriers that provide the nation with the option of a carrier strike capability on a continuous basis. But she's not alone. The 4th of 7 Astute-class nuclear attack submarines, HMS Audacious, will be leaving the BAE Systems yard in Barrow in a few months' time to join the rest of the submarine flotilla. We're building more of the new offshore patrol vessels, BAE just accepted the second of the Batch 2 River class HMS Medway off contract, and she'll come to Portsmouth shortly. We named the fourth Tamar in government in a couple of weeks' time. And our Type 26 anti-submarine warfare frigates are continuing to take shape up on the Clyde also. I was looking from a gantry down into the after machinery compartments of what will be in a few years HMS Glasgow, the first of the Type 26s, just the other week. And we can look forward to progressing the Type 31 General Purpose Frigate Programme and the RFA's Future Solid Support Programme too in the coming months. And we'll be making significant strides in the new realms of novel technologies, the kind of stuff that I certainly haven't seen at sea in my lifetime, but are becoming crucial to making navies credible and relevant and modern. Taking elements of information warfare, artificial intelligence and unmanned vehicles and making them as instinctive to operations in the Navy as the kind of things I'm more familiar with. We've always been at the forefront, leading world navies into new technologies, trying to stay one step ahead of the competition. And we're going to have to do that even more so in the future as we step into an era of machine speed warfare. So I'll wrap up now, having done a very quick tour de horizon around what we're doing now, how we're shaping for the future, and try and take some of your questions. But in closing, I would simply observe this, that Britain's fortunes have always been inextricably linked to the sea. It was as true in the days of Nelson as it is today. And I believe we can't afford to ignore the challenges that the maritime domain presents to our nation in both security and productivity terms. And the significant, rapidly evolving threats in the maritime domain, if left unchecked, have the capacity to significantly impact our way of life in a way that we probably haven't yet seen. And yet, for all of this, I remain confident that we have a Navy ready to respond to that challenge. We're working closely with allies and partners around the world who share that challenge with us, and we're operating on a close political direction that recognises the nature of those threats and is determined to see us rise to that challenge. And so with that in mind, I am perhaps, as I have to be, in support of the 30,000 people I lead, unapologetically optimistic about the future of the service. But I'm not unrealistically optimistic, because not only can I see the Navy capable of holding up a record of distinguished service to the country that makes them worthy successors of those extraordinary heroes, explorers and courageous people that have served in the Navy for half a millennium, but also because I can see them ready to demonstrate that utility on current operations, delivering tangible effect around the world in that bold, confident manner that so many of you here recognise as the traditions of our service. Because for all the challenges we faced in the past and for all those we continue to face now, we do have a Navy with a suite of capabilities that very few outside the United States can match, capable of deterring and, if necessary, defeating threats from space to the seabed. But above all, because the architects of that future success are the extraordinary men and women who make up today's naval service, sailors and marines, regulars and reserves, extraordinary civil servants, defence industrial partners who support us. These are people who possess an unbridled capacity to innovate, to adapt, and to embrace whatever the future may have in store, as sailors and marines have done throughout history. People who daily demonstrate their actions in the time-honoured values that have been the watchwords of our service for generations. People that it has been my very great honour and privilege as First Sealer for the last 3 years, representing all the rich heritage of this region inside our wonderful service, to lead for that time. Thank you very much.
Plenty of time for questions, and my colleague Fergus has got a microphone he'll circulate if you run to if you want to ask a question. I'm sure you will.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to hear the news. As an ex-Matlow, I think it's great. But one concern I have is that in the press they keep talking about the fact that the Prince of Wales could well be mothballed. And I'd just like your comments on that.
Yes, you're right. That bubbled up in the media last week. So when you say keep talking, I haven't seen that for a long time. So a bit of history of the Queen Elizabeth class carriers. Originally conceived in the Defence Review in '98, and from that point onwards seen as a class of 2, effectively operating short takeoff vertical landing aircraft until the SDSR of 2010, which decided that we would only proceed with one of them, but we converted to cats and traps, as we call them, catapults and arrestor gear, and effectively hold one in extended readiness and mothballs, if you like. That was then overturned in 2015 by no, that's madness. We need to build 2 and operate 2s, and let's make them stowable because it's too expensive to fit them with cats and traps. So it's been through a lot of convulsions just to get to this point. But all of that deliberation was happening when it was a concept, when it was an artist's design. The difference now is they're built. Queen Elizabeth, as you've probably seen in the media already, has been operating for a couple of years. In fact, she's about to go back to what's I think go into dry dock for a few weeks just to check all is well under the keel. Prince of Wales is substantially complete and due at sea in the next couple of months. So to mess around with a programme that you've effectively built and completed, the costs are sunk, it is a very different prospect. So firstly, I think there's very little chance of that being seen as politically acceptable. But secondly, it's crazy value for money terms. So it spiked last week. I don't know where the spike came from, but in an era of social media, we've got to respond to that kind of thing on a near constant basis. I think it was put as a question to the Minister of State for the Armed Forces, Mark Lancaster, in a defence debate in the House last week. And he wasn't expecting it either because he hadn't seen any of that. And I saw him go back to the MP who asked the question and knock it flat in a statement a couple of days ago, which was very reassuring. So you live in a world where that kind of thing is constantly with you, with someone always speculating in some form in the media about what the future is going to hold. But we just stay clear to the plans we know we've been given, to the cost of programmes we're implementing, and to the way in which we've been told to use them. So I hope that reassures you. Thanks.
There's been a lot in the press recently about the problems of the army recruiting. I just wondered if you could say something about what the situation is in the Navy.
Yes, thank you. Again, the context within which all the armed forces are trying to recruit and retain people. Demography is against us. We've been trying to recruit out of a generation of young people which is smaller than it was 10, 20 and 30 years ago. It is also for all the right reasons, and this is it's a wonderful sign of how our nation, how our culture has evolved. The opportunities for these young people are more diverse and broad than they've ever been. But at the same time, those opportunities have given them very high expectations of what they want out of their working life. The sense of being ready to commit to one profession, to one way of life, for perhaps an entire working life, as I committed 40 years to the Royal Navy, doesn't seem to fit with the younger generations. They want to jump around a bit and try a whole variety of things. And then on top of that, their expectations of work-life balance, their expectations of being able to commit to a life outside work, and dare I say it, never be that far from a mobile phone, are things we have to deal with in the military, because you cannot shy away from the fact that we are going to invite people to put, to a degree, self to one side and teams and form. That's what we inculcate in them from an early stage. That we are going to ask them to have fairly mobile and fluid lives in terms of where they're based and where they're living and working. And in the case of the Navy, we're going to have to ask them to go to sea. It's very difficult to avoid the fact that the clue's in the title. So we're going to have to separate you from friends and family for periods, hopefully managed and sustainable over a career. And occasionally we're going to have to separate you from your digital devices. We've got to work through all of that as a way of being able to recruit and retain. So I'm pleased to say that we are finding ways of doing that. So our recruiting is very healthy. We have the smallest gap between the numbers we have in uniform and the numbers we would like to have of any of the armed forces. And as we have the highest levels of separation and the most demanding harmony statistics, I think that's a great credit on the Navy. Because what you have to do is get inside their minds and say, never mind the idea of separation, never mind the idea of sometimes being away from your digital device, never mind the idea of having to go to sea. We're going to give you a sense of being in something bigger than you, where you will have unbelievable levels of teamwork and interaction and comradeship and challenge and opportunity and excitement. So just come and give it a go. And if it doesn't work for you, okay, fine. There will be many like that. But if it does, you'll have an extraordinary time. And there are still many, many people who are accepting that challenge. We are filling pretty well all our places in initial training at the moment, rating and officers. We have a particular challenge in the Royal Marines around recruiting at the moment as well, which in many ways mirrors the Army's challenge, because the kind of people who aspire to a career in the Royal Marines are looking for the same kind of adventure as those who join the Army. And at the moment it's less obvious to see where that is going to come from, certainly in comparison to the way we use the Army and Marines in Sierra Leone, in the Balkans, in Iraq and Afghanistan, and Libya and Syria in recent years. So, but what we are saying, the great attraction for the Marines is, well, you're part of the Navy, and that same global Navy that's doing all those things I described, of course incorporates the Royal Marines. So, we are beginning to get on top of that challenge as well. Don't think of yourselves as being rather like the Army, you just happen to go to sea. You are part of the Navy, you just happen to fight from the sea onto the land. And that's having some success too. But absolutely no opportunity to rest on our laurels, because the recruiting challenge is persistent. It's very high, and has been for a couple of years now, in trying to recruit and retain enough engineers, not least because the nation is short of people with a science, technology, engineering and maths background and a desire to work in that field. The private sector, many of you here, I'm sure are doing this, making them unbelievable offers to come and join you, so we have to compete with them too. And our most recent challenge, again, an interesting reflection on how the nation is evolving, is we're struggling to recruit the right number of logisticians, people to work in catering services, because there aren't enough people in the UK who want to work in that field either. So we're thinking of different ways of shaping the ship's company so we can do with fewer of them. We've got approval now to open up our recruiting taps to more Commonwealth joiners. There's gratifyingly large numbers of them who fancy trying a career in the Royal Navy. So it's a persistent effort. It's the Navy Board's biggest risk at the moment. We are coming up with ever more innovative ways of trying to solve it. We think we have to change as an organisation as well the way we recruit and retain. We're a classic bottom-fed organisation. Get them all in early and make them work all the way up the system to the top, as I did and as many of you did. We think we have to be much more agile and do sideways entry recruiting, bring people in later on in the organisation with experience in that particular field, and be ready to offer more flexible careers. So if you reach a time in your service career when you need to step away from regular frontline deployed seagoing service because you need to for family or other reasons, then we let you do that. And then we bring you back at a time when you're ready to re-engage and come back and do regular sea service. So we've got to stop being so ageist. The idea that everyone is young in the ship is fine, because most of the young people are the best ones for accepting the rigours of life at sea. But I was visiting a submarine recently where we had some engineers working aft on the nuclear plant who were in their 60s. Why not? Fit as a fiddle, really keen to be back at sea. Children are off their hands and the wives kick them back to work, and they come back and rejoin and are back at sea. And why not? So we just need to open up our own vision of how we recruit and retain. The other thing that will help us in this, and this is a real bonus that technology gives to the Navy that it doesn't necessarily give to the Army and the Air Force, is the size of our ship's companies are dropping as technology comes more and more into the fleet. So our current general purpose frigates, the Type 23, have a ship's company of about 200. Their predecessors 20 years ago had a ship's company of over 400, and their successors, the Type 31, will be barely 100. Now that creates enormous opportunities to deliver the same effect of globally deployed fleet with many fewer numbers of people. trouble is, the traditional ships company is shaped a bit like that, from the commanding officer down to the junior rates. In the Type 31, it's going to be like that. You still need a captain, you still need heads of department, you still need technical chief petty officers running their sections, but many fewer junior rates. How do you sustain a career stream like that? You need many more of them to pull through to the top than traditionally been the case. But these are the challenges you've got to grapple with when you're leading the service. So sorry, I gave you a very fulsome answer there, but that's because, as you now recognise, you tapped into one of our most significant challenges that we are absolutely grappling with. Thank you.
So I'm past my also of the Royal Marine Reserve Merseyside and chairman of the RMCA, Reserve Force Cadet Association, as you know. But now I've started to have my cadet hat back on. I went to the Combined Cadet Force at Liverpool College and went to my spur to join the reserves. There may be others present who are members of the Cadet Force who have done a lot better than others. Be yourself.
Yes.
But my question at the moment is with regard to support to combined cadet forces. Liverpool College, which is now in the Caribbean, is increasing in size. It has the 6th largest cadet force in the country, combined cadet force in the country, which the naval section is the largest. It is not a recruitment machine. They have their cadet force and the Duke of Edinburgh World as the part of their core curriculum. It is an open door for people to view and see the Royal Navy. And yet the funding for the cadet forces is very poor. Is on the horizon any review of the support in financial terms for the combined cadet forces throughout the country?
Thank you. Yes, you're absolutely right. One of the other factors that got me to join the Navy was that I was in the naval section of the combined cadet force at Birkdale School, so you add that to Camelot and it almost felt like a destiny. And I recognise absolutely the window of opportunity it gives. We set great store by trying to get our relationship with the cadet organisations right, and I've just finished a round of updates with all the people who lead our cadet affiliations inside the Navy. And as you may know, it's quite a complicated portfolio for the Royal Navy because our relationship with the combined cadet forces and with the volunteer cadet force is exactly as it is for the Army and the Air Force. But with the Sea Cadets, it's a rather different relationship, where every individual Sea Cadet unit is, as it were, a charity in its own right, with its own board of trustees, its own fundraising needs. And while all the other cadet forces are centrally funded using a formula agreed in the Ministry of Defence, broken for us by the Reserve Forces and Cadets Association, the Sea Cadets are funded by a grant and aid that can be negotiated and tuned in relationship with the Royal Navy. All of the armed forces are coming off the back of a couple of very demanding years of having our budget squeezed, and everyone kind of had to take their share of the haircut that enabled us to live within our means. We could not completely protect cadet funding from that, because I was also making some quite tough decisions as a top-level budget holder, as you accurately described me, to stop training of regulars. One of the things I hated, we had to stop Royal Navy ships visiting the non-dockyard ports in the UK, which is crazy because that's how we show the white ensign around the UK. But that's a sign of the kind of things we're doing. We're delaying and deferring a lot of our equipment programs. We are through that now. Our finances in this financial year and the next financial year are much steadier, much more even keel, and we are able to support our cadet forces much more realistically than we have been able to in the last couple of years. But I'm keenly aware that you can inadvertently institute a kind of black hole there, where suddenly your funding has disillusioned a number of people, not just the cadets themselves, but those who brilliantly step forward to be adult volunteers within the cadet force, all of which happens in your private time. And so I'm personally very keen, as the leadership of my cadet relationships in the Royal Navy, that we step back into this and show that we're determined to try and redress the way we failed in the last couple of years. Because I think we recognise not only is it for some a very valuable step into the service. You know, this is the first proper visibility you get. But for many others who quite rightly have no intention of joining the Navy, it at least gives them exposure to who we are and what we do. And later on in their career, they may be able to influence debate and decision making. They may be able to influence public opinion by what they've seen and what they've experienced in the cadet forces. So not only do we need to fund it properly, but we need to fund the experience properly. One of the things I've undertaken to do is try and make more warship visits available to our cadets, try and make some of the best kind of courses that they do in their vacations and holidays available to more of our cadets, so that we can do all the things that you know and support so well. Thank you for what you do at Liverpool Parish.
I think probably the moment thing where we have to call it to a halt, and Mr. Philip will be around just to, there may be some more photographs about the sculpture, so if you want to ask any questions privately, I'm sure you can grab him. I'm going to hand over to Stephen in just a moment, but I would like to remind you that we've got the sculpture outside all day. If you're really at a loose end today, then do come back at 11 o'clock, because today is Shrove Tuesday, and so we have the City Liverpool pancake race taking place. We've got about, I think, 10 of the latest companies, 10 chefs from hotels and restaurants who are going to come and race around our gardens. I think, in fact, we need to do heaps. There are so many of them. Every year we've done it, we've had live coverage on the BBC, so we'll see if they turn up this year. But anyway, you'd be most welcome to stay while the sun shines. With that little plug, and I better plug as well, that tomorrow is Ash Wednesday. We have the Archbishop of York here at 12:15, and you will be most welcome to come to an Ash Wednesday service with the Archbishop of York, the Catholic Archbishop of Liverpool, the bishops of Liverpool and Mornington, the Assistant Bishop of Liverpool, and if that's not enough, hopefully all of you as well. That's at 12:15, but here's Stephen.
My voice carried. You did the microphone, no? Lord Lieutenant, High Sheriff, Commodore, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure, I know in fact, you would want to join me in showing our appreciation to support the people of this today, and it's very, very interesting talk. But before we show our appreciation, could I also express my thanks to the Chambers of Commerce in Liverpool, in the Wirral, in Moseley, and also Professional Liverpool, all of whom have been very supportive in arranging this event. And of course, I would not forget Crispin and the church. And it's only correct that we should be here on this occasion. Thank you very, very much. Now my question, and by way, before we show, say thanks.
I thought I could relax as I was done here.
I'll try and work this question carefully, but you've said that you think the Prince of Wales will go to sea trials, I think I heard you say September, roughly. Now, can you imagine, and I'm sure you can, if she ever gets close to Liverpool, this place will explode, and everybody I know in Merseyside is looking forward to the day when hopefully our ship, the Prince of Wales, will come sailing up that Mersey. Now, I will not embarrass you and ask for a specific date, but are we talking about years ahead, or is it a little bit shorter than that? Because I do hope she will come.
She will, of course, once she's an operational commission, will should be here and hopefully alongside. But Tom, just so you know, I'm not going to stitch up Captain Mormouse completely today and make a promise that he then has to deliver against. Not least because by the time Prince of Wales goes to sea, sadly, I won't be first sealed. I hand over in June and she's due at sea in September. But I think I would not be wrong in saying, Tom and Phil, that plans are afoot to have a look at whether there's an opportunity for her to share herself at some stage during the sea trials. But all I will say as a caveat to that is going back to the Queen Elizabeth sea trials in the summer of 2017, they don't always go to plan because it is an extraordinary moment when you put a ship like that to sea for the first time, indeed any ship to sea for the first time, and you push the buttons and turn the lever of the rudder and just does it actually work the way it's meant to? And all sorts of defects manifest that mean you have to change the schedule. But somewhere in that period of her initial sea trials, I think there is an aim for her to try and shake the fence. Is that as far as I can go?
That's wonderful news. I was thinking about the Open Golf Championship that you'd be planning 4 or 5 years ahead. that would be wonderful to hear that.
But once she's in service, very quickly we'll try and bring her here to have a proper affiliation visit where we can put her on site and let the people who will see.
And I sincerely hope you will come along with that on that occasion, despite the fact we've seen you.
I hope so. Yes, that's exactly right.
Now, I know there's also a number of businesses here that have been supported. I know Camel there, they're here. I think Clark Energy are here. Are they still here just now?
Yeah, still.
Yes, because I'm quite sure